My daughter did something unspeakable. First of all, I'm 70 years old. My daughter's 30, and I'm still paying everything for her using my pension. I'm not rich or anything, I'm scraping by. So guys, when I discovered she did the most fraudulent thing she could have ever done, it involves me, and I could be reliable on this, and guys, I don't want to go down for what my stupid daughter did this time. What would you do if you had a 30-year-old baby for a daughter? Hey, I'm Marcus. I'm a 70-year-old retiree who uses his pension to feed his daughter's mouth. Now, my relationship with my daughter has not been great. And I would say it's partly because I was not totally around during her adolescent years even. My absence was because of her own good, as I went away for work just to work my butt off. I found love some 40 years ago, and even though I never got married to my lover, she took me in, and my daughter Natalie was the result. There were plans to get married, of course, but Natalie's mom lost her life during childbirth. The death of Natalie's mother hit me really hard, but the only thing I could do was dedicate my life to loving Natalie, as she was the only constant reminder of the love I experienced with her mom. I made up my mind against remarriage as I felt another lady would not love Natalie as much as I did, and I think it may have been a wrong decision because she actually needed a mother figure in her life. I could not give her a mother figure, but she had something close to a brother, my nephew Manuel. See, Manuel had been living with us ever since a year before Natalie graduated from college, and that's about 5 years or so. During Natalie's teenage years, I worked in a construction firm, so I was away most of the time even, and this was the very reason why I sent her to a boarding school to go through the high school phase. Another reason was so she could learn to be independent on time. It did not work out as I expected, and as I started to notice an ugly trait in my daughter's character. See, Natalie loved to live above her means. She refused to relate with the teenagers who lived in our area, as she felt that they were beneath her. See, these were people whose parents lived an average life like us. Some of the teenagers even said that if you heard the way she talked, you would think that she was the daughter of the president. I never talked to Natalie about it until I became the victim of her stupidity. This was during her final year in high school, and I've been away for about 2 months. So when I returned, I went to visit her at school. Natalie was told that I was around, and I eagerly waited for my daughter, whom I had not seen my eyes on in weeks. She took the time to come see me, but she did not come alone. She came with 2 of her friends, and she was in the middle feeling like a boss already. Well, I was happy to see my daughter, and I was about to take my leave when she did something so annoying. She informed me that she was going to come back home on her own when the school was over for the session and asked for a transport fare. Well, yeah, I was impressed by the fact that she was catching up on the independence lesson, so I pulled out a $100 bill and handed it over to her. She immediately demanded I gave her friends something, so I pulled out 2 $20 bills and handed them to her friends. And they made faces like I was holding feces and would not take it. Natalie then noted that $20 was not really going to do much around, and I knew at that point that the kids, whom my daughter called her friends, were spoiled and ungrateful. I did want to embarrass Natalie in the presence of her friends, so I returned the money back down to my purse and, pulled out. This time around, 2 $50 bills. The girls took the money and said an entitled thank you, but I just ignored them for Natalie's sake, and I patiently waited for her to return home at the end of the school session so I could talk to her about that very incident. The school was officially over in about 2 weeks, and Natalie was home. I let her get settled for a few days before we talked about how everything was going for her, especially the fact that she needed to sit up as her grade was not so good. We finally spoke. I referred to the incident to her friends, and I pointed out to her why I felt disrespected by her actions, and why I felt those people she called her friends were of bad company. But Natalie just immediately turned the tables against me, and she began to cry and say that she lived a lonely life, as I was never around, and the few people whom she had bonded with were now being labeled spoiled brats. I did not know what to say. I felt guilty in the sense that I was never really around, but on the other hand, there were good folks with whom she could make friends and not some kids without manners. All the same, I did not push that matter because she was in her final year, and once they graduated, there would be some distance between everyone, and the level of negative influence would dwindle, and I never knew that my daughter would decide to toe the path of waywardness once she graduated. See, Natalie graduated with poor results from high school, but she was able to gain admission into college, and I was almost financially wrecked during her first year in college. She was so demanding and would not want to settle for something that was, not expensive. She quit coming home and would only call when she needed money. So I decided to visit Natalie. Surprisingly, since she would not come home, I know it might sound weird that I went to see my daughter in college, but what would you have done if you had been in my shoes? It was not difficult to locate the apartment where my daughter was staying because I had been paying for it right from her first year. I knocked on the door, but it was one of her friends who answered and looked at me in a condescending manner. I ignored her and asked about my daughter. She asked what business I had with Natalie, and I told her I was her father. She looked at me and then at the Ford F-150, which I had rode down to the place. She went inside, and I heard her tell Natalie that a, quote, man who claimed to be her father was asking for her. So Natalie came out, but she did not seem elated by my presence. She asked in a very hushed tone what I was doing in her apartment. You see, her response and reaction is not the type any parent would want to see. All the same, I asked if she was not going to at least let me inside her apartment, and she said I could not come in. It was the part that shocked me, and I get the fact that she had friends with her, but, what would have been wrong if I had come in and met with her friends? The friends in question now stood behind Natalie to see if I actually was her father. So immediately, Natalie noticed their presence and said to me, as if I were not her father but his messenger, "Go back and tell my dad that his message was well received." And with that, she went in and shut the door. I went into my car and sat down for a while, as I was trying to process the fact that my daughter had just denied me in front of her friends. I went back home but decided to ignore her. Well, she didn't bother to call me. She had just sent a lousy text about how she was sorry for what happened. Well, I obviously ignored it. The next month soon came, and she began calling my phone frantically. I knew that she was calling because I had sent her a monthly allowance at the time, but I ignored her. Natalie came down to the house for the first time in a very long time, and it was not because she missed me. She walked into the parlor where I sat and greeted me. I didn't even respond to her greeting, and she began to apologize for denying me in front of her friends. I asked why she had done that, and she said I did not look presentable enough. I was not well dressed, so what she meant by not being presentable was that I was not dressed like some president of sorts. It dawned on me that Natalie was living a double life, and she had obviously lied to her rich friends that her father was a big man somewhere. I told her that if she was ashamed of me, then she could not get my money. So Natalie immediately began to raise her voice at me like she was entitled to my money. I marveled at the entitlement, and I've done everything for her, but she was not appreciative enough. I was paying her damn college fees with my pension, for crying out loud, which came in on a monthly basis, and the only way she could show gratitude was to be entitled. I clearly told her that the last time she saw a dime of my money was the last time she would ever see my money. Well, Manuel, who had been present while Natalie and I argued, immediately began to play the mediator. I loved my daughter, but she was breaking my heart. Well, thanks to Emmanuel, she left the house that day with my money. And I even continued to pay her fees till she graduated. Natalie graduated 5 years ago, but she has not secured a job. She's not even attended one interview that I know of, not even one. All she does is party every weekend, and no, I don't know where she gets the money. She wears these expensive clothings and litters the internet with images of her looking like the daughter of a billionaire. It would have been better if she had never gone to school from the onset, because everything spent on her academics was literally wasted. I did what every concerned father would do, and that was to talk to my daughter to straighten things up. I got into Natalie's room one morning and she was applying her makeup. It was on a weekday, but since I knew she did not have a job, I started off the conversation by asking if she was going for a job interview or something. Natalie said she was getting ready to go for a photo shoot, so I asked her to give me 5 minutes of her time, but she noted that she was already running late for her appointment. Well, Natalie knew that I wanted to talk to her about her lifestyle, and so the claim that she was running late was just an evasive tactic. I told her I would not be along, and that was when she temporarily paused what she was doing so that I could talk. I began by reminding her that she was my daughter and that I loved her more than life itself. I asked what plans that she had for her life, and she said a lot. She definitely knew where I was going. So I told her she's 30 years of age and could not spend the rest of her life living aimlessly without a purpose. I asked how she had been sponsoring her lifestyle because we both know damn well she didn't have a job. Natalie said that although she did not have a job, she did have a career as a social media influencer. I pointed out to her that all she did was just live a fake life, and Natalie had said that she was going to fake it till she makes it. Well, guys, I was absolutely at a loss for words, so I just walked out of her room. She met me this evening and told me that she was engaged to be married, and I was happy for her, even though I felt pity for whoever she was going to get married to. Natalie said her fiance was eager to meet me, and it was the same on my end. So I went ahead and asked, when she was going to bring him to the house, and guys, she stuttered and said that she had arranged for us to meet at a very popular restaurant inside of the city. Okay, I bet. I immediately told her that if her fiancé was interested in meeting me, then he should come down to my home. I'm 70 years of age, for crying out loud, and trying to reduce the stress in my life. Natalie said that the reason she had fixed the meeting was because she felt the house was not presentable enough. I didn't know what she had told her fiancé about her background, and I was not ready for the drama. I simply told her that if she was not willing to bring her fiancé down to our home, then they could both go to hell, because I would not be party to living a fake life. I'm gonna update you guys in a little bit. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Oh boy, does this story just get increasingly crazier. I do have 3 action-packed updates for you guys. Hey, if you're not subscribed to the channel, well, you might want to do that. For daily videos of some of the craziest stories on this planet. Well, only about 20% of viewers are subscribed, so if you want to hit that button, you would be in the select few. Guys, let's jump into the first update and see what's going on. Update number 1. Natalie finally brought her man to the house, and I believe she would have evaded it if not for the fact that her fiancé was not willing to get married to her without first meeting with her father. Before his visit, though, she met me and said she needed some money to renovate the house to make it better suited for the guest. Well, if her guest were going to change his mind about the whole marriage because of the house that she lived in, then he would not be ready for a marriage. So I told her that the house where I lived was okay, and no need of a renovation, but if she felt it was oh so necessary, she could go ahead and use her own money. My daughter surprisingly did. She renovated the entire parlor and front porch within 10 days. And guys, I don't know how she got the money. I don't. Not at all. And I don't care. The day came and her fiancé showed up to the house inside of a taxi. A taxi? Well, guys, I was shocked because with the way that she has been going about everything, you would think my daughter was, getting married to a rich guy. Well, I didn't want to judge a book by its cover, as it was possible that his vehicle may have been broken down or something. So I just made my observation. The young man came into the parlor, and Natalie asked him to make himself comfortable in our, quote, humble abode. Natalie then jokingly appealed to him to overlook the simplicity of the house, as I adopted simplicity as a lifestyle, and the duplex which I was currently building was simply because she had been on my neck for a long time, all that it was time for a new home, which was more fitting for somebody of my class. Oh, you can guess how surprised I was to learn that I was building a duplex, which I never knew. My daughter would do anything just to maintain this lie that she was fronting to the public. I smiled, gritted my teeth, because whatever would have come out of my mouth was going to be the truth. The young man was very respectful. He introduced himself and started, saying what his intentions were. He was a sales executive in a very high-top firm, and even though he did not earn too much right now, it was enough to take care of both him and my daughter. So guys, this was exactly what he said. I loved his sincerity and simplicity, and it was quite unfortunate that he wanted to get married to somebody who did not believe in simplicity, but rather in living an extravagant life. I wasn't interested in knowing how he and my daughter had crossed paths, or if he was even sure that he truly loved her, because the young man, from what I could see, was so into Natalie. So I just simply asked what plans that he had for her. The two opposites attract each other because the words that flew out of this young man's mouth were full of wisdom. Anyways, he went ahead and talked about how he felt marriage was not an end in itself, but a means to fulfill purpose. He then talked about how, though he was not wealthy, he planned to build with my daughter Natalie. The guy had just won my heart, and I could see that one, if not the major reason why Natalie would choose to settle down with someone like him was because he was an easygoing person who would tolerate her nonsense. I asked if they've decided on the wedding date, and Natalie jumped right in, and she said that they were considering having their wedding in 3 months because huge plans were underway. She started talking about how the elegance of the wedding would dwarf that of her friends, and how it would be the talk of the town. Her fiance, whom I had listened to, had shown a great depth of wisdom, and so I wondered why he would be planning to throw a big wedding that could financially set him back. Well, I then suspected that Natalie was obviously the one pushing him, and he just loved her so much to say no. I did not offer any advice right there because I knew it would reveal the depth of my daughter's foolishness, so I just waited for her fiancé to leave. I waited till it was nighttime before I called her into my room. Natalie came, and the first thing I asked her was if she loved the young man she was engaged to, and she replied, of course, and started to name several qualities she admired. After she was done with all the nonsense she was spewing, I then asked why she wanted to wreck him, if she did truly love him. See, Natalie was taken aback by my question, and her facade changed. She asked what on earth did I mean. Well, I didn't bring up the house lie that she had concocted in front of her fiancé, as it was not really necessary then, but I did tell her that she was setting the young man up for financial downfall via the expensive wedding that she was planning. Natalie defensively said that it was the most important day of her life, and she wanted it to be special. Well, besides, I'm equally making my own quota for this financial contribution towards the wedding planning, she said. I knew it was nonsense because Natalie had no job, but I did not emphasize that. I told Natalie that she could have a very special wedding without it being extravagant, and all of the money that could have been used in planning the kind of wedding she wanted could be used for them to start building a life together. Guys, Natalie flared up. She questioned if I truly wanted what was best for her, because she was only one in her circle of friends who had gotten married. Ah, there it goes. The major reason she had decided to settle down with somebody was not as, he's rich as she vaunted herself to be. It's because, quote, her friends had gotten married already. She wanted to outdo them. She then claimed that the extravagant wedding was a way of starting up her event planning gig. Since it would be live-streamed in her rich audience who her event planning gigs, they would see it, who would desire something as glamorous as hers. They could patronize her, and Natalie always had a way of bringing up excuses. Excuses just to justify whatever she was doing. So, I simply said it was fine and asked her to leave. After all, I'm not the one who's going to pay the bills. Anyways, that's all for now. Update number 2. I'm currently in a nursing home, where I received news more shocking than the partial stroke that hit me. Firstly, the reason I've gotten the stroke was that it turned out that the wedding of my daughter was taking longer than expected. So I asked her about it, but each time I did, she would claim that they had shifted the date because somebody who was to render a service for the wedding needed more time to prepare. I decided to ask her fiance after she had repeatedly given me a series of excuses. Her fiance, who was sincere, told me that the level of finance needed to plan the kind of marriage Natalie wanted was difficult to come by. I didn't bother to ask why he did not opt for something less expensive, because I knew it's Natalie and she wouldn't allow it. And he wanted to please her, so I pitied the young man, who was to be my son-in-law, and I decided to talk to my daughter one more time to see if she could, just have some sense. But Natalie was not interested in having what she dubbed a grade 2 wedding. Well, I was busy trying to make her see reason when she plainly asked me to just stay out of her business, stay out of her wedding plannings, and not go behind her back. Well, to talk to her fiancé about their issues. I immediately barked at her to shut up. I began to remind her that I was her father and she would not be standing there if it weren't for me. I was busy venting my anger when I passed out. I woke up at the hospital and it turned out I had a partial stroke. I stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks before I was discharged and released to go home. Natalie and Manuel took me to the house and my daughter suddenly started to care for me. Excessively, It was astonishing that for the first time in her life she could be thoughtful towards things that concerned me. She immediately suggested as soon as we got home that I would be enrolled in a nursing home. Manuel said that my condition had been normalized and was not so critical anymore. So he had taken care of me just as he's been doing for so long. I was surprised and pleased by Natalie's reaction. "Are you expecting me to put the fate of my father in your hands?" she asked him with a harsh voice. "He has to go where I'm certain that he would get the best care," she concluded. Seeing Natalie standing up for me felt good, but I knew that Manuel meant well, so I said that it was right. I trusted Manuel with my life, but Natalie refused. She said she could not risk it and began to make inquiries about a nursing home. So I quit putting up a fight and decided that I was going to go to the nursing home. Natalie made contact with one of the nursing homes, which was in a different part of the city, and I had to go. Manuel felt very sad about this, and he had become like a son to me. But Natalie asked him to take comfort in the fact that I was going, so, I could come back better and stronger. I was gone for 2 weeks when Manuel came to visit me. He had shocking news. He told me that he had recently discovered my daughter Natalie was in serious debt. And though he was not supposed to be bothered about the fact that she was in debt, the circumstances and other discoveries that he had made were enough to spark concern. According to Manuel, he said that he had come to the house one morning after rounding up from his night shift. He said he was at the door when he heard someone on the inside raising her voice at Natalie and urging her to pay the amount that she owed. Not just her, but some other folks as well. He could hear the creditor threatening to have her arrested if she did not make the payment within a short period of time. See, Manuel, curiously, listened to a further understanding of the scope of what was even going on. And that's when we heard it. What made his ears tingle? He heard Natalie tell the lady that her father, me, just passed away 3 days ago, and she was not in the right place emotionally to be thinking about the debts that she owed. She pleaded with the individual to give her an additional month, and she would totally clear it. Manuel knew it was a lie because he had called the nursing home and spoke with me just the evening before that day. The lady sympathized with Natalie and gave her time that she requested. Manuel came into the house but acted like he was not aware of what was going on. See, Manuel did not talk to Natalie or do anything about what he had heard, but he immediately changed his mind and decided to talk to me. When he heard her call the insurance company to notify them of my death and the desire to get my life insurance benefit, since she was the beneficiary, well, they even notified her that she needed to provide my death certificate, and she promised to do so. And as I listened to Manuel make such a grave accusation against Natalie, I decided it was best to speak with my lawyer since he's responsible for maintaining records and documents related to my legal matters, just to ensure their accuracy and compliance with the law. He would be coming to see me tomorrow. Final update. You can get so hurt by the people you love to the point that the love turns into something else. And with that, I want to let you know, my dearest readers, that I no longer have a daughter. Natalie's very much alive, of course, but she's dead to me. It turned out that all Manuel had told me was true. So I met with a lawyer a week or so later and I asked him to review my documents after meeting with Manuel, and this was to give Natalie enough time to carry out her scheme if she had one. My lawyer did exactly as he was told and came back to tell me that I was in danger of being arrested for fraud. According to him, he had observed a certain discrepancy in my insurance policy and I was declared dead, with my life insurance fully paid out to my beneficiary, Natalie. I explained to him what's going on and he advised me to alert the authorities to avoid being seen as an accessory to crime. So I assured him I was going to do just that. But I needed to pay my daughter back on her own coin. So I sent it to Natalie and she came and acted like she missed me. I asked her about her wedding and all, and she noted that the dates have been fixed. And though she would want me to be there, she knew it was too much stress for me to have to go. So I didn't argue with her, that it was clear that she could not risk having me at the wedding or else her scheme would blow up in her face. I agreed that I needed to fully recover, but I wished her the best even though I knew what to do. I waited till the day of her wedding and then I reported the matter to the police. The plan was to get her humiliated and arrested on the day that was supposed to be the one of the happiest of her life. Well, guys, and that's exactly what I did. If my daughter would be so selfish and self-centered to fake my death just so she could prove a point to her friends and the world, then I think I'm better off without her. So I stormed her wedding venue with the police and Emmanuel by my side, and you could tell that a lot of money has been put into the event. It was a pity for her that she never got to tie the knot with her fiance. The moment we made our presence known, she looked at me like she was in shock. So I went straight to the altar and sarcastically said that she was looking at me like she had seen a ghost. But I understood because judging from the death certificate that she had forged, it meant that I had come back from the dead. I then turned to the crowd gathered and announced to the crowd that I was her father and I had come with the cops to get her arrested for forging my death certificate. Yep, so she could sponsor her flamboyant wedding just to live up to her motto of fake it till you make it. They all gasped in surprise, and I was sure her online followers were oh so surprised too. Well, she was live streaming the wedding and her fiance was left speechless and did not know what to say. So I immediately asked the police to take her away. She went in her wedding dress and handcuffed to the police station, and Natalie admitted to everything. Well, she couldn't really deny it, could she, as there's evidence against her. She pleaded with me not to press charges, but I told her it was out of my hands because she had defrauded the insurance company. Natalie's going to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and even though there's a kind of stinging pain that comes up each time I think about her, I've decided my life would be better off without her. Guys, I read the comment section over and over again, and I can't wrap my head around what a lot of people were talking about. They were saying how OP went way too far in his revenge, so-called, and he should not have gone to the wedding and ruined her big day. Well, I totally disagree with that, but there is one part that I agree with. They were saying that OP should have just let this play out. If he had to go to the cops and tip off that he's not a part of it, then so be it. But she would have been so much worse off if this kept on going, because these lies that she was saying just kept compiling on her over and over, and eventually she was going to get caught one way or the other. But I do understand how OP wanted to get it over with, because technically his name was wrapped up in fraudulent behaviors because of her. What would you guys have done? Drop your comments in the comment section. I would love to hear from you guys. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every single day. If you want to be a part of these stories, consider subscribing, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. And of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.